What's going on, everybody? It is your host, Lowkey 303, coming back at you guys with another episode of Back of the Class. I'm here with my co-host, John Pattison, and today we are going to be discussing chapters 3 and 4 of Boba Fett. So, John's had a long day. I've had a long day. I am 8 rap projects deep into my 69 projects, so I'm in the thick of it. Right now, actually, at the time of this podcast coming out, I'll be 9 projects deep. So I'm really in the thick of things right now with my rap stuff. John is obviously a aspiring filmmaker, future Batman director. So with all that being said, John and I, we've had vivid weeks. I mean, how are you doing, John?
I am so fucking tired. I don't know if I'm gonna get through this episode.
If
So for all of you listening, I have been on a film set all weekend. Um, Not a lot of downtime, but piece of good news. Um, my short film will be on YouTube by the time this video drops. So link in
yes,
the description if you want to watch that.
link as always, guys. Before we get into talking about Boba Fett, links to all of our socials and our most recent work will always be in the description. Well, it's good, John. Yeah, let's get the show on the road. I think I'm going to be doing a majority of the talking today, but of course, John is very knowledgeable, and he'll be chiming in with his opinions. Goal for this episode is for both of us to say less, and for me specifically to say like less. So I'm going to try to be aware of that because I hate listening to myself on podcasts. So, there's already an literally like the first word I say before I try to get into it. Okay. So before we get into talking about chapter 3, I just wanted to say that this show really, really reminds me of the 1990s legendary Journeys of Hercules, and also the 90s show Xena. I don't think many people are aware of those shows, but if you grew up with a dad who was watching TV in the 90s, he may have introduced you to those. But I just wanted to put that out there for any viewers who may have seen the legendary Journeys of Hercules or Xena. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me on that. But I definitely think that there was some inspiration from those shows for the Book of Boba Fett, and especially considering that. Wait, who's the actor for Boba?
Tamura Morrison.
He is New Zealander, right?
Yes.
That is Xena and Hercules were both filmed in New Zealand.
Hmm.
So in the 90s, it was popular to film action shows in New Zealand. And another quick fun fact, Ryan Gosling, before he was the Ryan Gosling that we know, played young Hercules in a 1-season, 50-episode show. 50 episodes, yeah. You can if you don't believe me, you can look it up. But yes, before Ryan Gosling was La La Land Ryan Gosling, he was young Hercules.
Before Ryan Gosling was Barack Obama, he
Yes.
was young Hercules.
So I just thought I'd put that out there for my 90s TV fans. Where are you at? Me and John might have to cover those shows some days. Who knows?
Maybe,
So
dude. We got to go back and do some classics.
we got to go back for real. We got to do a Citizen Kane episode at some point. Those classic films. Okay,
Yeah.
so chapter 3 is named The Streets of Mos Espa. The chapter starts off with Boba's robot, who's not a protocol droid, basically breaking down to Boba who owns what parts of the city. And there's basically 3 different factions. You have the lizard people, like the slightly more human looking Gamorreans, and then those like weird like spider people that are those weird spider humanoid people. Do you know the specific names based off my descriptions?
What? The spider humanoid people.
Yes, their faces are like 2 big eyes. It looks like a nut in the front of their
Oh.
face, with like a indent in the middle.
Oh, damn it. I can't remember their
It's very
species.
hard to describe races in Star Wars without. Can you imagine police reports in the Star Wars world? It must be so complicated. That's probably why crime is so rampant in the world of Star Wars.
Yeah, they couldn't catch anyone.
So basically, I actually really like Boba's droid. I'm I'm a fan of this droid.
Yeah.
So while this breakdown is happening, a local worker comes in and he basically tells Boba, "Hey, no one respects you. You suck, bro. We don't give a
Yes.
shit about you
Played
being."
by Stephen Root. Great actor.
And he tells Boba, "Hey, I sell water to people because I'm a fucking hustler." And there's this gang.
Well, he sells water to people on a planet where all you have to do is dig 4 inches to find water.
Yes, he sells. Well, we will get back to those balls later because I have a little discourse about those balls
We'll
because
get back to the balls later.
it apparently it doesn't taste like normal water, and we discover that when he's talking to Fennec about them after he rescues her. But we will get back to that. So this guy, this worker, he tells Boba, "Hey, there's this gang of like rowdy street kids, and they're like," he makes them seem like really bad. Like he's like, "Here I go again with the fucking legs." Okay, start that. So this worker, he tells Boba, "Yeah, there's this gang of street kids," and he tries to make them seem very, very intimidating. He describes them as like, "Oh, they replace their body parts with mechanical things, and oh, they don't even work. They just rob me." And he's trying to make them seem really bad, but then Boba rolls up on them, and this just starts to look like a bunch of kids who listen to punk rock music, and they're all just like, "Yeah, we know who you are." And I like how Boba, he always feels the need to say his name. He always
I
goes,
fucking hate
"Yeah,
that.
I'm Boba Fett. I'm Boba Fett." He also says Boba Fett in a completely different cadence than pretty much anyone else who says Boba Fett.
I am Boba Fett.
I I am Boba Fett. Yes, so Boba Fett has to announce himself to the weird street punk gang, and they see like this dude with a mechanical eye. There's like a bitch with a mechanical arm. There's a guy with a mechanical foot. They all have different colored Vespas. It's all weird. It again kind of like the Twi'lek receptionist. This doesn't fit in with at least what I think fits in with Star Wars.
I think well, the thing is, so I think their cybernetic enhancements would be fine. What takes me out of it is the fucking Vespas.
Yeah,
Why do they just have normal
I
ass Vespas?
yeah, I think showing more human people with modifications made sense. The Vespas does not at all. And
Also, don't you love how that lead Vespa chick is paler than pale? She is whiter than the whitest whites on a planet with 2 suns.
they're like, "Yeah, we don't give a fuck who you are, Boba Fett. There's nothing else to do. There's no work out here, but somehow we have money to pay for all of these things because we rob people." And then Boba says, "Hey, you should come work for me." And they're all like, "All right, well, we'll go." They agree. There's surprisingly for a group of rebels, they agree to this pretty easily.
Yeah.
And then Boba goes, he confronts the worker who wanted them to stop the guys, right? To stop the gang. And then he's like, "All right, I'll give you 500 credit. Fuck off and lower your water prices."
Dude, Boba Fett fell the fuck off.
He did.
He fell off. He used to be the best bounty hunter in the galaxy, and now he rolls up to a bunch of people, says what his name is, refuses to fire his blaster, and then just fucks off.
Those Tusken Raiders made him soft. He is
Yeah.
soft. He is weak.
Tusken Raiders, some of the biggest badasses in the galaxy that everyone on Tatooine is afraid of, made Boba Fett soft.
And oh yeah, see, literally at the top of my notes, I have dumbass colored bikes written in. So yeah, dumbass colored bikes, and then Boba, he's a back to tank addict, right? He's fucking
Yes.
addicted to the back to tank. Boba enters his back to tank after this confrontation, and he has a flashback to Camino, and he sees Django flying off, going off to start an OnlyFans or whatever Django was doing at the time. And then Boba in his flashback, then it cuts back to him with the Tusken Raiders. He has very, very, very vivid flashbacks to his time with the Tusken Raiders. And this flashback is when he tries to go to collect money from the Pikes, and then the Pike leader says, "No, we don't need your protection from you and the Tusken Raiders. We've been doing business with the biker gang." So after this confrontation, Boba essentially tells the Pike leader, he says, "Okay, we'll take care of the biker gang, and you will be able to partner with us." He goes back to find the Tusken camp completely destroyed. So the So the Tuskens couldn't do shit apparently. And I mean, you can't really blame them with full speed bikers and with the way the Tuskens wanted to fight. They were definitely more gifted in hand to hand combat. I'm not here to break down a fight like Joe Rogan, okay? Basically, the Tusken Raiders got their asses handed to them. Their whole camp is destroyed.
The
Boba sees,
Banthas died.
yes, the Banthas died. Boba sees that everyone he was close with is dead. And then he essentially just has to ride off into the sunset. This flashback ends, and in my notes, I have Evil Chewbacca, also known as Black Chrysanthemum.
Yes,
Black
Black Chrysanthemum grabs his ass and yeets him out of the bacta tank.
Yes.
It is amazing. And then you get naked Boba Fett fighting evil Chewbacca.
Yeah. Yeah, and also for most of my notes, I couldn't remember Black Chrysanthemum's name, so I just put down Croissant. So Croissant grabs Boba Fett, as John said, he yeets him out of his bacta tank, and the stupid biker gang pulls up. And a weird little detail that I noticed is that head biker chick, she's walking up. Boba Fett is literally on the verge of getting choked to death by Croissant, and and biker chick is literally walking up with a little knife, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you think you're cool? Eh." And then like Black Chrysanthemum is looking at them like, "What the fuck? Like these people think they're gonna do anything?" The biker gang tries to take him down, but they can't. He fights all of them off. His Boba Fett's bum ass Gamorrean dude. Why did he even hire these Gamorreans? They are some bum crumbs.
They're always so late to the fight.
They were always late. I don't understand this. Okay, first of all, how did Black Chrysanthemum get into the place? Second of all, why doesn't Boba have a Gamorrean standing by at all times? That's literally what he paid him for.
What I'm wondering is how Chrysanthemum got through the door to Jabba's palace, got past the Vespas, got past the Gamorreans, and got past Fennec fucking Shand all the way up to the bacta tank.
Yeah, how did he get past any of those people? But if I was Boba, I'm like Kanye West after this last live performance of Donda, like when his microphone died. I'm firing everyone on the spot if I'm Boba Fett, except for maybe Fennec. Like seriously, yeah, the Gamorreans suck. Black Chrysanthemum bites one of them like a fucking psychopath. And once again,
he bites one of them like the Chad that he is.
Yeah.
This man is the best character on this show. He just shows up, does some badass shit, and leaves.
It's made me realize that Star Wars should just be a silent movie. They need to make a silent movie Star Wars with no dialogue, because I think that's when Star Wars is at its best.
About Black Chrysanthemum.
Yes. About Black Chrysanthemum. So Fennec, once again, she has to show up to save the day. She gets Black Chrysanthemum into the pit, and then it cuts to Boba and Fennec at a little dinner sit down.
Is that where he puts the gaffy stick in Chrysanthemum's back?
I think she uses it.
That looks so uncomfortable. Like they bury the gaffy stick in the dude's spine.
Yeah. And then he was hanging on, and then I think she kicks his hand off the ledge. And then it cuts to Boba and Fennec eating at a dinner table. He's like, I don't know, I sense some chemistry there. It's giving me it's giving me old couple vibes, like that old couple that meets after they already divorced and they're like, hey, our kids are raised, our old spouses fucking suck. Let's just move to Florida and fuck, it's giving me two divorced people who have found love with each other vibes. They're at this dinner sit down, and Fennec is basically telling him like, oh, you should just enjoy being a daimyo, and Boba's like, no, there's literally an entire table of food in front of me, but I refuse to eat. There's literally a fucking buffet for like 20 people, and there's one of those like desert lizards with like stuff. Dude, it looks amazing. It looks amazing. Everything on the table looks absolutely amazing. As I said, there's like 20 dishes, and you see the little droid rolling out with like 2 more dishes. He's like, no more food. Like Boba, I'm like, okay, well then why didn't you tell him to stop like 20 dishes ago if you weren't gonna fucking eat anything?
Where's all the staff for this palace coming from? Who cooks all the food?
They show that in episode 4 in the break, and it's 2 droids, and then there's the server droid. Droid with the knives, and then there's the one like typical protocol.
Can I just say that's the most boring palace? Like when Jabba was in charge, Dude, they were partying. There was a rave every night.
Yeah,
And boy, but there's like 8 people there, and Black Chrysanthemum can get past security easily. Remember when Luke Skywalker had to create a 5-step plan to get into Jabba's palace,
yeah,
and Black Chrysanthemum just walks right in?
yeah. Like Boba doesn't know how to throw a party, man. Jabba knew what he was doing in that respect. He had the whole town lit,
Yeah.
and while they're having this dinner that Boba refuses to eat, the twins show up. The
Yes.
overly
The,
sexual,
the, the very intimate twins.
yes, the intimate twins show up, and they decide to deliver Boba Fett a Rancor as a gift. They're like, "Hey, sorry, we know that we sent Croissant to kill you. We're sorry about that. Here's a Rancor. By the way, we're leaving this planet because the Pikes are at war, are going to be at war with anyone who owns this land, and they partner with the mayor, with that bitch ass mayor. So it's pretty much pointless for us to be here. There's no point in having land on Tatooine. You can have fun with this Boba Fett. Here's the Rancor. You can do whatever
And
you
Danny
want."
Trejo.
Yeah, and the most random fucking Danny Trejo appearance ever. What?
Danny Trejo's such a legend.
He
But
is.
in this show, it's like, oh, hi, Danny Trejo.
It's such a random cameo, and
What
then like
pisses me off is they made Danny fucking Trejo a Rancor keeper. Like, they could have made Danny Trejo a bounty hunter.
I know they should.
Imagine how cool that would have been.
That would have been very cool. And then and then Boba. We discover that ever since being with the Tuskens, Boba Fett has become a humanitarian and an animal lover. He's very close with banthas. He wants to get very close with the Rancor. He wants to pet it, and he even wants to learn how to ride it. So
Yes.
Boba is showing enthusiasm that was never seen before. That Empire, that basically he would have never shown this side of himself when he was under contract for Darth Vader, which is really funny to see. And then his droid shows up and says, "Hey, the mayor can't make an appointment for 20 weeks. He's ducking the smoke." Then Boba's like, "Okay, well, fuck the meeting. I'm gonna go hang out with white Twi'lek receptionist guy again." And they show up to confront the mayor, and the white Twi'lek receptionist is like, "Mayor is not seeing anyone right now, unfortunately." He says "unfortunate." I forget what word he says, but he says the same word twice in one sentence, which came off to me as realistic but lazy script writing. It's like,
Yeah.
"Unfortunately, the mayor cannot see anyone. Unfortunately." I'm like, oh, "Fuck you, dude," and you're over having ass. And then he's like, and then Fennec shows a strap on him. She's like, "Hey, you want to keep your life? You'll get us in with the mayor." He's like, "All right, I'll see what I can do." And it turns out white Twi'lek receptionist guy just dips for the most useless chase scene in the
The
history of Star Wars.
dumbest chase scene, dude. They're going like the
10
speed
miles.
limit.
Yeah,
It's like I drive faster in school zones.
dude, they're going. Dude, I walk twice a week. I my speed walking is probably faster than what white Twi'lek receptionist guy's dune car was doing in the
You
streets.
you you know what this chase is like?
Yeah,
It it's like a bunch of Honda Civics chasing a minivan.
yeah, pretty much, pretty much. And in this chase, countless shit is ran over. They destroy like 10% of the town. Can we
But they're
talk
not
about?
even going fast. They can avoid all this stuff.
Yeah, he kicks the Twi'lek receptionist guy actually kicks the ass of the biker gang, essentially up until the last moment, to where head gang chick is just like, "Oh, whatever, whatever." I forget what maneuver she does, but she basically gets his car to slide into the entire fruit market. And when I say the entire fruit market, I'm not joking. It is the entire fucking fruit market. It is absolute chaos. Like, goddamn, bro. It's like, do you realize the destruction you're causing to these communities? How do people even still live on Tatooine? Like, it is worse. It is worse than Detroit. Um, so it's like, if people think you can't have shit in Detroit, no, bro, you can't have shit on Tatooine.
Yeah.
So white receptionist guy is and Boba, after his car crashes, Boba just jets out on his jetpack. I'm like, okay, so what was even the purpose of having the Vespa gang when you could have just used your jetpack to
Like,
stop him anyway?
why didn't he just do that from the start?
Yeah, and then like he's like, "Tell me what's up with the mayor." I'm Boba Fett. And then,
He's whining like a little kid.
and then the reception is like, the mayor is working. He's working with the Pikes. I'm like, can we get this guy off the fucking screen? And then
Can they tell us something we don't know? That's literally what the twins said, is that they're working with the Pikes.
and then we have a very we there was a dad joke in Boba Fett which caught me off guard. Literally, the last scene of the episode is they have the dude with the eye. He's waiting at like the ship port, and he sees the Pikes arrive, and he goes to FaceTime Boba Fett and Fennec, and then he's like, "Yes, the Pikes have arrived." And then Boba Fett's like, "All right, keep an eye on them." He's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to." And then the guy's like, "Oh, don't be worried about." He has a British accent for some reason. He's like, "Don't worry about it, mate. I paid a lot for this eye." And then basically Boba and Fennec are like, "We must prepare for war. I am Boba Fett." Okay, so, because Boba has to let everyone know every single sentence that he is Boba Fett. It's like in first two episodes, I was like, this show's the fucking greatest thing that ever happened in 2022. And then after seeing these two episodes, I'm like, fuck this show, fuck Disney. This show should have never happened, and fuck Boba Fett. This show is playing with my fucking emotions right now. I don't know how you can. It's like, fuck this show. This is just a bad version of Xena and the Legendary Journeys of Hercules.
And you have 3 episodes
yeah,
left.
I still have 3 more episodes to go. Okay, so with the shit show that was episode 3 over, that episode was a short one.
It was
Let's get into
so shitty.
yeah.
It was so bad.
How did I diss that whole episode? I didn't even say fuck the stupid Vespa biker game.
Also, don't you love? I think this is a good place to interject it.
Okay.
Don't you love how there's no fucking story so far? Like,
yeah, there's
he meets he's at the palace. He's like, all right, no one likes me, and then my dog's barking. But the Gamorrean guards get there, and they're like, the Gamorreans might want to kill you. And Boba's like, will you work for me? And they're like, sure. And he's like, cool, you work for me now. And then in the second episode, the twins are here. They're like, hey, we're gonna kill you. And Boba's like, no. And they're like, fair enough. And then they fuck off. And then in the third episode, the Vespas come in, and Boba's like, hey, do you want a job? And they're like, sure. And he's like, cool, come with me. What the hell's the story of this show? Boba's just doing whatever the fuck he wants.
And the flashbacks are making it confusing too, because it's like it's 2 storylines. Like, they could have had a whole show about him getting his life back together with the Tuskens, and I think that would have been dope. Or they could have just had a show with him rising to the top and claiming the throne. Or they could have just had a show with him fighting the Pikes. Why are there so many side stories and useless characters? Okay.
Yeah. And I will say, after episode 4, we have to break down the timeline of this show.
Okay. Yes. Speaking of chapter 4, I wanted to ask you about some of the timeline shit in here, because this is where it gets interesting.
It gets so confusing.
Yes. Okay. So chapter 4, it is named The Gathering Storm. So just another fucking setup episode, basically. So
it is. This show's all set up, by the way.
Starts off with a flashback. What else is surprised? Boba Fett spends 80% of his fucking life in the back of the tank, okay? So it starts off with a flashback. What else is new? So Boba Fett's riding out into the sunset after finding out that the Tusken camp has burned down, and he goes to scout out Jabba's palace. But he decides not to do anything because there's too many guards, and the reason he's scouting out Jabba's palace is because he wants that shit, and he wants his ship back. And I will say, the barbecue that he was cooking with his bantha, that he fed to his bantha, man, that barbecue looked bomb as fuck. I don't know what kind of meat it was, but if I was there, hey, all I need is some Sweet Baby Ray's, and we're good. And
Sweet Baby Ray's on anything.
On anything. Fire. And when Boba's eating his barbecue, he sees like flashes of light going off in the distance, and it's not really clear of what these are.
It actually is clear.
Oh, okay.
Explain. It took me a minute to realize what it was, but in Mandalorian season 1, Boba and this other guy go on this bounty hunt to get Fennec Shand, and she's got her sniper, and she's got these goggles on that are like her infrared goggles. And what Mando figures out is if they shoot flares, it'll blind her long enough for them to get close. So those two lights are them shooting flares to get Fennec. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So Boba's over there cooking barbecue and Mando's kicking ass.
Yeah. So then, yeah, so he sees lights go off in the distance, and then Boba ends up finding Fennec in the middle of nowhere. She's got a gut shot, so he has to take her to get operated on. Takes her to this body modification place, and it turns out
Takes her to a tattoo artist.
yeah, he takes her to a Star Wars tattoo artist essentially. And it's kind of funny because like everyone, basically all young people on Tatooine get their body modified, which I think is kind of funny because it's not even too different from Earth, honestly. And then he walks into the shop, and this guy with dreads is like, "Aren't you a little old to be in here?" And then like Boba Fett is like, "No, I am Boba Fett. I need the lady operated on immediately." And then the guy's like, "Sorry, dude, I don't do walk-ins." And then Boba Fett just drops a wad of credits down, and then he's just
I remember he was like, "I don't do walk-ins appointment only." I'm like, "What is this? A dentist?"
Yeah. And then, but Boba pays him off in classic Boba fashion, and Fennec essentially gets a new gut. So, I mean, that's probably useful. You probably never have to worry about stomach problems again. She probably, if she was lactose intolerant before, she's definitely not lactose intolerant now. She gets a new gut, and then she wakes up, and Boba Fett's honestly kind of giving me creepy vibes in the scene. Like, imagine you wake up and some dude is just like sitting by you, and you realize that you have a new stomach.
A hooded figure.
Yeah, I'd be creeped out too for sure. Here's the Black Melons discourse, John. So Boba Fett opens it up when we see the green gas, right? And then he sets it down, and then he's like, "The taste is in." He says something essentially along the lines of like, "Oh, the taste is interesting. It's hard to get used to, but then you'll crave it. By the way, I'm Boba Fett." And then, and then, so that begs a question: what does the black melon taste like? I thought it was water.
So did I.
I guess a weird kind of water.
I feel like what happened is halfway through writing the show, they realized that the black melons just being water contradicts what happens in Mandalorian season 2 when Cobb Vanth drinks one and it's disgusting. And instead of rewriting it to make sense, they just had Boba say it's not normal water. And then it just became really confusing. And they're like, yeah, fuck it, it works. People won't question it. And then two dipshits like us question it.
Because we want to know everything. So essentially, Boba Fett is just like, "Oh, I know who you are. You're Fennec Shand. You're Fennec Shart. You're the legendary bounty hunter from the Mid-Rim." And Boba Fett says he wants her to help him recover his gunship, which is at Jabba's palace, which is now ruled by Bib Fortuna. Bib Fortuna is a super creepy guy. Very creepy guy.
Yes, and now a super fat guy.
Yeah. Strange enough. Spoils of riches, I guess. So they go scout out the palace. Sorry, before they scout out the palace, Fennec is like, "All right, well, you know what? Fuck it. I don't have another option right now. You did save my life, so I'll help you out this one time."
Fuck it, we ball.
So they sneak a tracking device drone into the palace, which is like, it's not really stealthily because it has bright red lights blinking on it, but it's like, okay, whatever. You can't nitpick everything. So it basically maps out the entire palace. Once again, Boba loves animals. He has to say goodbye to his bantha. He throws it like a pork chop, and then it leaves.
Pork chop.
Boba Fett's dialogue is very funny at some parts in the show. Like, he's like, "Go, go, go, go make bantha babies."
Yeah.
I am Boba Fett.
I am Boba Fett.
I need to make a super cut of every single time Boba Fett said, "I am Boba Fett." It probably goes up. Yeah. It's probably going to be more than 10. Yeah, so Boba says goodbye to his bantha, and then Boba just explains his entire shtick, his entire plan to Fennec, that he wants to rule, and that he needs help just like getting into the palace. So they break into the palace through the sewers. Boba has to confront the wannabe General Grievous kitchen guard, who's like the kitchen robot with all the knives. You see him swinging. I'm pretty sure that's an ode to General Grievous, but then Fennec just disables it from the back. And the tiny little bunny droid, which I don't understand why a droid would need to be designed like that, but they are designed like that. And the bunny droid shows up, and the droid literally commits suicide when it sees Boba Fett. It literally shits his pants and turns itself off. Like, the droid is like, "Mer, mer, mer," and then he just turns himself off. I'm like, bro, So droids can commit suicide. I'm like,
And then Boba actually, I remember this from the episode. Boba tells the droid he's Boba Fett.
yes, this is an actual moment where where
This is a actual moment that people wrote, filmed, edited, released, and were like, yes, this is good
he
content.
picks up
Boba picks up a droid and says, I am Boba Fett.
he picks up a bunny droid, the least intimidating droid out of all the droids. He picks up a bunny droid by the neck and says, "I am Boba Fett." And then literally, this
Like,
is
we're not even
so,
shitting, because usually we just say it as a joke, but he actually says, I am Boba Fett to
and
this
this is
droid.
and just by announcing his name is Boba Fett, this is so intimidating to the droid that it commits suicide. Boba Fett literally made a droid kill itself by announcing his presence. Fucking the dominance of Boba Fett. I literally put in my notes, Boba asserts dominance. So they get to his ship because for whatever reason there's no guards around, even though when the little tracking device went in there was like 100 million guards. And there's no guards. They get to the ship, guards show up, Fennec fights the guards off, Boba gets in the ship, he's able to fly it, and they narrowly escape.
Yeah.
Now
They,
Boba,
they, they back that puppy out of the garage.
yes. And then Boba goes and finds the biker gang and he sends them back to the Stone Age, which was a very satisfying scene. He completely obliterates them. And then when he's flying off, we see the Sarlacc pit. We're like, okay, we know Boba's gonna want to do something with this. And he's like, my armor, it's still in there. And then like Fennec is, and then it's kind of funny because like we all know that the Jawas took his armor.
Well, not only do we know, Boba knows. He was awake when the Jawas took. He
Yes.
climbed out of the Sarlacc pit in his armor, which
Yeah.
means the armor made it out of the Sarlacc pit. Then he was awake when the Jawas took his armor, so he knows the armor's not in the Sarlacc pit. Yet Mister I Am Boba Fett pulls the Slave One right up to the mouth of the Sarlacc pit, and he's like, "My armor's in there." And by the way, instead of letting his ship get devoured by a monster. I'm gonna calm down. So, Lando got grabbed by the Sarlacc, right? It was pulling him in. Han was pulling Lando out of the Sarlacc pit, and the Sarlacc was trying really hard to pull Lando in, and it couldn't do it. Han beat the Sarlacc pit.
Mm-hmm.
But in this show, the Sarlacc pit has the strength to pull a gunship that has its reverse thrusters activated down into the sand.
Yeah.
And also, Fennec, like 2 scenes earlier, used her little like recon ball. Just drop that into the Sarlacc if you think the armor's in there and look around with that. Why are you putting why are you putting the Slave One inside
This is
the pit?
this is literally the dumbest maneuver ever from Boba Fett. Like, what did he think was going to come of this? Like, oh, I'm just gonna fly my fucking ship straight into the. Okay, this is another thing I was gonna say. Why would he ever want to be near a thing that he apparently spent years?
Okay, so this is what confused me. So this is where we need to talk about the timeline of this show. So show starts, Boba's in the Sarlacc pit. It looks like it's been a while since the battle went down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boba breaks out of the Sarlacc pit. Boba is immediately picked up by Tusken Raiders. So you think it's maybe like a couple days, right?
Yeah.
And then he trains with the Tuskens for a bit. He becomes one of them. And then he goes out on his own. And then he sees the flares of Mando fighting. Mandalorian takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So either Boba Fett was inside the Sarlacc pit for 5 years, and which means A, he wasn't eating anything, B, he wasn't drinking anything, and C, he first woke up in the show.
Mm-hmm.
So either he was in a 5-year coma and somehow got fatter, or he was fucking around with the Tusken Raiders for 5 years. I don't think either of those two things are true. I don't understand and then he gets the ship, he gets his revenge, and then he's like, let's go get my armor back. which happens, I want to say, like a month later, maybe. So, what the hell's the timeline of this show? Was he with the Tuscans for 5 years, or was he in a 5-year coma? And you're telling me that they kept the Slave One in the garage for 5 years? They didn't auction that shit off?
Yeah, why would they need it if no one ever flew it? Like Boba's the only person that knows how to fly it anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess it's more likely he was with the Raiders for 5 years. I don't fucking know. I don't. Anyways, the timeline of this show is completely fucked. I think they tried to tell too many. Think they tried to tell too many stories of Boba Fett in one show.
The timeline of this show is fucked like a Christopher Nolan movie. It's just best not to think about it.
So yeah, so Boba does this fucking ridiculous. He's like my armor, it's in there. It's like
No, it's not. No, it's not.
stupid.
He knows it's not.
Here's the thing: if he spent 5 years fucking around with the Raiders, it would make sense that he forgot that.
I am willing to accept it. It's still bullshit, but that's what I'm gonna use to come to grips with it. Is he was just vibing with the Tuscans and forgot. But even then, when this man was explaining how he escaped, did he not say, "I used my flamethrower to torch the Sarlacc and climb out of it"?
Yeah.
Newsflash, Boba, the flamethrower's on your fucking armor.
So yeah, there's that shit with Boba. Boba tries to go with it in his ship. The Sarlacc wakes up and it's basically sucking Boba and the ship into the Sarlacc, which is like the worst fucking nightmare for Boba ever. Even Fennec is like, "Oh, you're so fucking stupid." And then Fennec saves the day by hitting a button, and miraculously, one of the
seismic charge.
Yeah, a seismic charge just perfectly falls out of the back of Boba's ship and perfectly falls right into the mouth of the Sarlacc, and it blows up. And then after Fennec saves everybody's life that was in the ship, Boba's like, "Next time, don't touch my buttons."
But I will say though, yes, that he said, "Don't touch my buttons." He probably said, "I'm Boba Fett." But something I actually thought was cool is when they showed what it was like for a seismic charge to go off in the planet, because usually it's just in the air, so you just hear the sound, but you don't see what it's like. But it shows like the ship sinks into the ground.
When it happened in episode 2, that was for sure a nerdgasm for everyone who likes visual effects. Okay, after this whole debacle with the seismic charge, he goes back into the Sarlacc with a fucking like rope and pulley system. And
He
like,
does.
He's like,
that's right.
with a rope and pulley system, like a fucking rock climber. He goes back in there and has Fennec stand in the hot ass heat all day, helping him look for his armor. And he's like, "My armor, it's not in there." He's starting to sound like Batman. And then like Fennec like pours water on his head. And it bothers me that later that night, that when they're talking about their plan for life or whatever, he's still wearing the same garments. Like, bro, I'm like, take that shit off. That is unsanitary, Boba.
Wash that shit.
Yeah.
Crack a few of those water orbs and dump it on your outfit.
And then Boba's like, "Hey, I can promise you something work can't. Loyalty." So then Boba takes the throne after killing Bib, and Fennec takes her place at his side. And then the mayor still can't be found. Obviously, we know he's collabing with the Pikes. And then Croissant shows up back again. This time he's at a bar. He's at Flip's bar. Oh, good old Flip. And before we get to talking about Black Croissant, I just wanted to say about Flip real quick. This was the baddest she was ever looking in this episode. So I'm looking forward to more Flip appearances. And then so Croissant is getting lit at the bar. He's basically an alcoholic at this point. He's like, he's like, "Fuck this shit. No one wants to hire gladiators anymore. Just got screwed out of my job with the Hutts." He sees these lizard people having fun. He's like, "You know what? I'm gonna cause some trouble." So he basically.
So let me explain why he did this, because he did have a motive for doing this.
Okay.
So the lizard people are called Trandoshans.
Yes.
And the Trandoshans have a hobby. They're the Clone Wars episode where they do this. The Trandoshans capture Wookiees and hunt them for sport. And so Chrysanthemum doesn't like that, right?
Mm,
And so the Trandoshans are racist. And Black Chrysanthemum is like, fuck you guys. And
yeah.
so yeah,
So basically,
I'm
it's
gonna
racial.
beat
It's
your ass.
racially motivated.
Yes, he is racially motivated. And without spoiling it, I'm going to tell you there is another scene in the show where that fucker is racially motivated, and it is stupendous. It's the best part of the whole show.
Okay. So then Fwip sees him beating the crap out of these guys, and she using her, she has a way with words, and she tries to de-escalate the situation. She has like a 30-second speech. This was actually a pretty funny moment of the show. She talks for like 30 seconds, trying to de-escalate the situation with the Black Chrysanthemum, and then he just rips the dude's arm off, and then like Boba's like, it was worth a try.
That's the most Boba Fett thing he said in the entire show. That's worth a try. Like that's the kind of stuff he was saying in the original trilogy all the time.
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that he was saying in the first two episodes before he started making corny jokes in the third one. So then here's a weird little detail I noticed. When they're walking out of the bar, Flip is like, hit it, Max. I'm like, you're telling me one of those aliens is named Max?
Max Rebo, the blue guy who was on Jabba's sail barge.
So Max survived.
Somehow.
So Max is immortal.
Max is immortal. I saw this one Reddit post that said the Max Rebo adventures, and every episode, Max Rebo somehow survives something he shouldn't survive, and it's just 8 episodes of him dying, but the twist of every episode is that he lived.
Max needs his own show. We need the misadventures of Max. That's the one. We need 30 episodes of him just going around Tatooine playing music, being a traveling musician. We need Fwip to have her own series too. We need Fwip OnlyFans ASAP. So Max gets back on the music. See, this is why I need you for the show, because even when you're super tired, I can do the summary, but I still need you for the details. Because how the fuck would I ever know like the name of that guy? And
Max Rebo.
so then not Max, Boba goes to talk to Croissant about a job. Boba wants to hire him for protection, or yeah,
I
okay,
believe so. He's like, "Hey, I need more muscle."
for the war.
And as is typical with most characters in this show, Chrysanthemum hates Boba. You know, yeets him out of the back to tank. He hates this guy. And then Boba's like, "Hey, you should work for me." And Chrysanthemum's like, "Okay."
Boba is having a dinner sit down, and he's actually eating this time. He's actually eating. He's having a dinner sit down with the 3 other leaders from the different areas of Mos Espa. And he says, hey, I want all of us to team up so we can go against the Pikes. And he wants all of the families of Mos Espa to join him on this. Boba, and then, however, the families are pretty skeptical of this. They don't really want to go to war. So Boba says, okay, can you at least remain neutral? And they all agree to this. They all accept. So it's kind of like there's going to be a neutral ground, and it's really just Boba versus the Pikes. And him and Fennec discuss that like they're just going to need to just prepare for the war and get some more muscle. And that's where.
And don't you love how they've been talking about this war with the Pikes the entire show, but the Pikes have had like 20 seconds of screen time?
Yes. And then that's where the fucking episode ends. So, yeah. Those.
Well, do you recognize the musical, the music at the end of the episode?
No, I don't think I did.
So he says, "We need more muscle," and the Mandalorian theme plays. Yeah.
Foreshadowing. So yeah, I think that we pretty much gave all of our thoughts and rants on the episode throughout the thing. I'm pretty sure I said like less this time, so that's good. So I don't really have much to say, man. I mean, as I was just telling you a couple minutes ago, first 2 episodes I was like, this is amazing. After seeing these 2 episodes, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm
These
like, where is this?
We're so bad. And something else I noticed, So Boba's like, Boba, galactically renowned bounty hunter, is like, we need muscle. What do we do? And Fennec's like, well, you can buy muscle. Boba's the one who should know that. People were paying for his services for years.
Yeah, how
He
can
should know you can buy muscle. His best friend is a bounty hunter.
Yeah. Dude, as someone who spent years as one of the the galaxy bounty hunter, how the fuck does he not know more shit? Like he probably doesn't
I
even know.
know.
He
The whole show is just Boba walking around like a puppy dog and Fennec having to train him.
Yeah. Fennec is basically his dominatrix. And so yeah, so I was a little surprised at the turn that these episodes took. And when I say bad, it's not horrible. It's not like rock bottom. I'm just confused at where the show is going. I think the biggest, as I was just saying a few minutes ago, I think the biggest problem is that they're trying to tell too many stories. It should have been
Mhm.
one storyline. If this was going to
It
be,
should have been set in the past, I think.
yeah,
I think this whole show should have been how he got out.
because is that is what Star Wars fans kind of wanted to see. We wanted
Mhm.
to see more of Darth Vader for high of Boba Fett for hire when he was collabing with Darth Vader all the time. But yeah, so any final thoughts on this episode, John? On the two episodes, John?
Here's hoping the next two are better.
Yes. Here's to the next two being better.
I mean,
So,
I know whether they're better or worse, but I'm not going to tell you that.
okay.
But here's hoping the next two are better.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said, this has been another episode of Back of the Class. It's your host, Lowkey303. If you want to see more episodes of this podcast, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out the rest of the channel. We post anywhere from like 2 to 4 clips a week, new episodes every Monday. And if you want to check out any work from me or John, you can check our links in the description. I do rap music and YouTube. John does YouTube, all kinds of like movie and TV breakdowns, especially Marvel content. If you're into Marvel content, make sure to go check out John's stuff. And with all that being said, this has been another episode of Back to the Class. Signing off.